On July 8, 1944, Private Guy Gabaldon, an 18-year-old Marine, stood at the base of Saipan's bonsai cliffs, contemplating a mission that defied all logic. The night before, Japanese forces had launched a massive and suicidal bonsai charge that left 4,000 of their soldiers dead. The surviving troops and civilians retreated into caves along the cliffs, preparing to die rather than surrender, an act deeply embedded in their Bushido code. For Japanese soldiers, surrender was not an option. They were taught that Americans would torture them, disgrace their families, and dishonor their bodies. Gabaldon, a Mexican-American from East Los Angeles, had learned broken Japanese as a child from his best friends, the Nakano twins, whose family he lived with for a time. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Nakano family was interned. Though not fluent, Gabaldon used this street-level Japanese to convince military recruiters of his language proficiency and was later trained at a Marine Japanese language school. By mid-1944, the American invasion of Saipan was in full swing. The island held strategic significance as a launching base for B-29 bombers targeting Japan. The fighting was brutal. The Japanese had built intricate tunnel networks and fortified positions in volcanic caves. Each cave had to be assaulted with flamethrowers and grenades. By July, over 3,000 Marines had already died. Gabaldon had begun defying orders shortly after landing on the island. He left camp on his own, capturing Japanese soldiers using a mix of intimidation and negotiation. Initially threatened with a court-martial, his commanding officer instead authorized him to operate solo, recognizing his unique ability to extract surrenders. On July 8th, Gabaldon returned to Bonsai Cliffs. Armed with only an M1 carbine, grenades, and his voice, he persuaded two prisoners to re-enter the caves and deliver a message: surrender now and receive food, water, and medical care, or face destruction from warships, bombers, and tanks. The caves were full of armed soldiers and terrified civilians, and the risk was enormous. Still, the gamble worked. Japanese soldiers began emerging, unarmed, walking slowly toward Gabaldon. Soon there were dozens, then hundreds. Civilians, wounded soldiers, elderly men, women, and children followed. Gabaldon kept order, separating groups, maintaining control, and speaking with a Japanese officer who emerged to confirm the offer of surrender. Eventually, over 800 Japanese walked down from the cliffs in a surrender coordinated by a single Marine with no radio and no backup. Gabaldon improvised a surrender flag from a white undershirt tied to a stick and led the entire group toward American lines, aware that any Marine patrol might mistake them for an attacking force. As they neared friendly positions, Gabaldon shouted in English, waving his arms to prevent disaster. He succeeded, and reinforcements were called in to process the largest single-day surrender by an individual in U.S. military history. Gabaldon wasn't finished. Over the next 3 weeks, he captured smaller groups of Japanese soldiers and civilians using the same tactics. His reputation spread among the Japanese, and many began requesting surrender negotiations only with him. His total count eventually reached over 1,300. Captain Schwab recommended Gabaldon for the Medal of Honor. The paperwork, including witness accounts and intelligence benefits gained, was forwarded to General Holland Smith. The commanding officer in the Pacific, Smith, downgraded the recommendation to a Silver Star, offering no explanation. Gabaldon's extraordinary achievements went largely unnoticed. There was no press coverage, no division-wide recognition. He quietly returned to his unit, resumed his duties, and continued operations until he was seriously wounded by machine gun fire on Tinian in August. Gabaldon's combat career ended with that wound. He was evacuated, treated, and eventually discharged at the age of 18. He returned home with a limp, no job prospects, and a story so incredible few believed it. In 1957, he was featured on the television show This Is Your Life, which brought national attention to his story. Hollywood adapted it into a film titled Hell to Eternity in 1960, with Gabaldon consulting. However, the film whitewashed his identity, casting a tall, blue-eyed actor instead of the short Mexican-American teenager he had been. The film renewed interest in Gabaldon's heroics. Soon after, the Marine Corps upgraded his Silver Star to the Navy Cross. Yet the Medal of Honor continued to elude him. For decades, Gabaldon campaigned for proper recognition. Fellow Marines supported his claims, as did military historians and veterans groups. He even received the Chesty Puller Award in 2005 for unrecognized heroism. But Medal of Honor regulations required the award to be granted within 3 years of the action, and by then it was over half a century too late. Despite this, Gabaldon's methods had a lasting impact. His ability to extract mass surrenders through cultural understanding, negotiation, and psychological tactics changed how the military approached prisoner handling. His story has been taught in military training programs, demonstrating that bravery isn't always about firepower, it can also be about humanity. Gabaldon eventually returned to Saipan, where he lived for 20 years, building a life among the people he once fought. He was respected by Japanese visitors who recognized him as the man who treated their relatives with honor. He published a memoir and remained active in veteran communities until his death in 2006. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full honors, though still without the Medal of Honor he had long sought. His life, though under-recognized, reshaped military doctrine and saved countless lives. Today, a memorial plaque in Saipan commemorates his contribution. Visitors leave flowers and notes of gratitude, and Marines learn his name in cultural awareness training. Gabaldon's legacy endures, not just as a warrior, but as a symbol of what courage, compassion, and creativity can achieve, even in war.